Oh, what happened to John? Welcome, everyone. Historic Preservation Commission, November 25th, 2024. It's just a couple minutes after 6 o'clock. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Copeland,
Here.
Mr. Becker,
Here.
Mr. Stevenson,
Here.
Mr. Testa,
Here.
Ms. Pisagno,
Here.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick,
Here.
Mr. Hammerin. Thank you.
Minutes, October 21st, 2024. You've had a chance to review those minutes. Do I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Wilson-Stridick, seconded by Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Abstain?
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno. Ms. Pisagno.
Abstain.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson-Stridick,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Yes. Thank you.
Res-
Did I hear myself call?
Did. Mr. Testa.
In any event, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And I really only respond when my name is called.
Details. Resolutions. City of Cape May, 643 Washington Street, Block 1059, Lot 11, Resolution 2024-35. JTG Group LLC, 1382 Lafayette Street, Block 1145, Lot 6, Resolution 2024-36. Dougherty, 211 Grant Street, Block 1022, Lot 23, Resolution 2024-37. Hoff, 1006 Washington Street, Block 1110, Lot 2, Resolution 2024-38. And finally, Hammerman, 1010 Washington Street, Block 1110, Lot 3, Resolution 2024-39. Do I have a motion to approve those resolutions?
I'll move to adopt the resolutions just noted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Ms. Wilson-Stridick. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno,
Abstain.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Thank you.
Applications approved or denied in review. You've had a chance to review all of those. Do I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Testa. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes, with the exception of 2919 North Street.
Thank you. Mr. Testa.
Yes, with the exception of Wilkinson, 1021 New Jersey Avenue, from which I abstain.
Thank you. Ms. Pisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick.
Yes, with the exception of Ruggiero 1021 Beach Avenue curb cut, which I object to.
Thank you. Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Old business. First up tonight is sorry for the pronunciation, 501 Hughes Street, Block 1049, Lot 10.01. This is a non-contributing fence.
Board members, Johnny Houses with Weeks Law
Oh,
Well, turn on your
turn
mics,
on
guys.
your mic, please.
It's better when it's green.
Thank you.
Also have with me David Shorten. David's an architect with Andrew Bechtold's firm, who is the architect who designed the plans related to this project. Mr. Chairman, as you indicated, this is an application for which we're back before the board seeking an amended approval as it relates to fencing and gating at the property at 501 Hughes Street. This was an application that was previously filed with the board back in March of this year, and an approval received on May 28th of this year related to what was seeking to be installed on the property. That included not only fencing, but also an in-ground swimming pool and patio pavers in the, behind the building to match those that were existing there at the then current time. That approval, as I indicated, was received in May, proceeded to the planning board thereafter for site plan approval, which was granted on August 27th. A copy of the resolution I've got with me, I'll provide as an exhibit this evening. But what that approval required was us, as a condition, to come back before this body related to the fencing and gating, as what was approved previously was a 6-foot wooden fence in what is deemed to be a front yard, albeit behind this building. It's a corner lot with 2 front yards. The planning board was not inclined to grant relief for anything more than a 4-foot fence on that side. So our amended application sought clarity on that point, as well as proposing a change in the style of the fencing from what was approved as a wooden fence to what is proposed as a 48-inch at the finial wrought iron fence, which we think is more aesthetically pleasing and appropriate for this property. So in a nutshell, that is what is before the board tonight. Chris, I know that I'd provided you with a copy of an exhibit. If I can have it marked as A1, it incorporates the prior approval of this body, resolution of the board, correspondence between myself and the HPC as well. So I have sufficient copies for everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know why
David, if you can, I just mentioned, that we're proposing wrought iron fence as, as opposed to the wooden fence that was approved previously. Can you show the board where it is we're looking to locate that and what's proposed exactly?
North is pointing up on the plan. The Decatur frontage is vertical to the left, to the west side of the property. Here's the subject home, and here's the subject pool in the area that we're talking about relative to with that area being fenced in. The fence is coming off of the face of the building in the corner towards the back, around this property, this portion of the property, and then straight out to Decatur Avenue. And then it's going to come up off of Decatur Avenue about a foot back beyond the property line, and then down the property line on the north side of the property. This is a wrought iron fence and gate, 48 inches tall, in compliance with zoning regulations. We changed it from a wood to a wrought iron because wrought iron is, we believe, more acceptable and more appropriate in a historic condition and more appropriate with the standards that standard has established. The fence across the back is the existing fence. It's an existing wooden fence that is 4.5 feet high, approximately down to the face of the building, and then it's a 6-foot-high wooden fence that we are proposing to keep.
And Dave, can you also talk about some of the landscaping we're proposing on the inside of the fence, but to shield, from the streetscape, what is proposed in the rear yard?
Landscaping along the inside of the fence will be made up of American hollies, 4 to 6 feet tall, grow to approximately 8 feet tall, approximately 60 to 62 inches in diameter, so they become very dense, hard to see through. Of course, they'll be married, usually 3 to 1, male to female, so that they bury well. It's a beautiful feature across Decatur Avenue and the north side of the property to give a dense buffer from the public zone to the private zone.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Shorten? Just wanted to get that out.
you're here tonight to talk about the fence, but the issue for us is a little bit different. This was originally approved in review in error, and The pool is, the proximity to Decatur Street creates a problem with streetscape. It's close to the street. We have not approved pools that close to a main street in the historic district. And since it's coming back for fence, which is required, our position is that that opens up the discussion to consider whether the pool is appropriate at that location. And so tonight, we are going to consider more than the fence. We'll consider the entire application. The fact that it was made in error doesn't prevent us from revisiting it at this point. And the question is, I guess for the group, how we want to proceed. I'm assuming you don't agree with.
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Chair.
Can I make a suggestion on this one? So the applicant's here. They brought, Mr. Amenhauser is here representing them. They also brought
David Shorten,
David Shorten. And you're,
architect with the firm of Bechtold, Thomas and Bechtold.
got it. So we have a threshold issue, which is kind of irregular, in that this was on, I think it proceeded through the review committee. It actually ended up in a resolution, not a resolution, but it ended up on the agenda for that roll call vote, the voice vote, for applications that are in review. The problem here, as I see it, and I want to give Mr. Amenhauser an opportunity to make his arguments to the board, but I think we should hear out the applicant as to why, and allow him to make a record. I understand A1 basically summarizes
Creates
your
my record, but.
position,
True,
and,
yes.
and I don't have a problem, stipulating that A1 is the applicant's position on that front. But if you want to make any additional kind of, your position to the board, and I'll give, it's probably going to be a counterpoint to that, but then I would suggest the board make a decision as to whether essentially the pool is still in play or not. And you're going to hear some arguments from Mr. Amenhauser, and I'll give probably what'll sound like a counterpoint to that. And then the board should make a decision. It's not up to me, and it's not up to one person on the board, and everybody understands that, but you should make a decision as a unit how you want to proceed on this. But after hearing, the basis for that. And then depending on the outcome of that, we may want to have some testimony on the merits of whatever we end up with on the outcome of that. But for purposes of keeping a clean record, I think we should deal with that threshold issue first.
Understood.
So I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Amenhauser.
So briefly, you touched on a few of the points that are relative to this, but I just want to, from a time frame perspective, sort of place this as to how things proceeded. This application was originally filed back in March of this year. On April 3rd, I received correspondence from the HPC secretary indicating that our initial application was not acceptable to the board, namely the fence proposed at the time, which was an aluminum fence. The suggestion that we received via email was that it wasn't appropriate and that if we submitted an application for a wood fence, it could be re-reviewed in committee. We thereafter, that was on April 3rd, and a copy of its Exhibit B to what I provided this evening. Thereafter, we did just that. We went back, we examined a wood fence, we prepared a plan and application for a wood fence, and submitted that. And it was then told to us on May 15th that the original application was not denied, that if a wood fence had been submitted, which it was here, it could be re-reviewed in committee and would be, and that it would be reviewed on Tuesday, May 28th, which apparently it was, because we received a copy of an approval from this body on that same date indicating that the application was approved. That application not only consisted of the revised wood fence plan, but an in-ground swimming pool, a landscape plan, as was shown on the site plan, and patio pavers in what we refer to as the rear of the building. It's not a rear yard, but the rear of the building. All of those items were not only in our original submission, Well, we're in our follow-up submission, which was then approved in May. Thereafter, in June 17th to be precise, as was indicated, this application was listed on applications approved, denied, in review. It's clearly, it's about halfway down on that agenda. And the minutes from that meeting suggest that that was approved that night by a 7-0 unanimous voice vote as well. So it's assumed that even if reviewed mistakenly in review, it was then placed on an agenda for anybody on the commission to see, and if there was objection to it, it could have been objected to at the time. There were none. It was approved unanimously, as I said, on June 17th. We thereafter went and spent, my clients, spent time and money on a planning board site plan application to see that through to fruition. We went before that body on August 27th. Initially, that was an application for site plan review or approval and variance relief. We eliminated the need for any variance relief and received unanimous approval by the planning board that evening related to this site plan, inclusive of the pool, inclusive of the landscaping, the pavers, and the fence to a degree. There was one condition of that approval, and it's memorialized in the board's resolution and provided this evening as part of my packet submission, that we come back before this body as it related solely to the gating and the fencing that were proposed, because they were not willing to approve a 6-foot fence along Decatur that's considered a front yard. They weren't going to go anywhere above 4. So we had two options. Come back here and propose a 4-foot wooden fence, which would be acceptable to that board if acceptable to this body, or make a slight change, which we proposed to do, which was to go from wood to wrought iron in that area, which we believe to be more historically appropriate, and come back here and ask for that approval. That is what we are doing tonight. My position legally is that the application before you is solely for that of an amended approval related to the fences and gates. I don't think my application could have been any clearer as to what we were seeking tonight. I also am of the opinion that under the municipal land use law related to Historic Preservation Commission, this body, as you know, is an advisory body. It provides referrals to planning and zoning boards.
It's not.
No.
It's not.
I don't believe it is incorrect. I think the statute's fairly
It's
clear.
a strong HPC, which means the construction official can't issue without our approval.
Correct.
That's not advice. That's binding.
I agree, and you provided a binding approval. My position is
Right, but
in May.
We just don't refer to ourselves as an advisory body.
Understood. But by statute, this board has the ability to provide referrals to the planning and zoning board related to applications.
Absolutely.
And there is timeframes stipulated in that statute as to when that is to occur. The position here is that that did occur prior to that board hearing our application on the 27th of August. They considered that referral, and they based their position and determination on that. So to now come back here when that application for development has been decided, I think is inappropriate, and I don't think finds any merit or ability to be done under the municipal land use law. There could be an argument that under the code you might think otherwise, but I think the statutory text is what would govern here. And I believe following that, the only thing that we're back here for is related to fencing and gating. That's the position that's more elaborately set forth in my pleadings, but that's the summation of it.
So I'll say that I don't think anybody in this room, up here, on the other side of the table, would look at this particular process and say, hey, that's a really good example of how things should work. But the follow-up question to that is it too late, or is the city foreclosed, or specifically HPC, from correcting an error? And I think the legal answer to that, from my standpoint, is no, it's not too late. And the reason for that would be, one, we have two distinct processes when you enter the HPC. First, you start with what Mr. Testa just indicated, that it's a strong HPC under the municipal land use law and is set forth in the city code, which means that you may have to go to the Shade Tree Commission, you may have to go to Planning Board, you may have to go to Zoning Board, but you have to check the box of getting HPC approval some way or somehow. I described this numerous times as a Venn diagram. All those circles have to overlap. Shade Tree Commission, planning, zoning, HPC is one of those circles that has to overlap for you to get a building permit. So that approval has to come some way, somehow. And what Mr. Ebenhauser is pointing to is he's saying, hey, I got approval. The problem with that argument, I think, for the HPC standpoint, and really looking back to what the purpose of this board is, which is to protect the city's historic landmark status, among other things. But we have major and minor applications. The minor applications, it's not a mystery what those things are. They're defined in the code to give people direction. It says any application for certificate of appropriateness, which one, does not involve demolition, relocation, or removal of historic site. B, does not involve an addition, that's AB. B, does not involve an addition to a property in the historic district or new construction in the historic district. C, is a request for approval of fences, signs, lighting, doors, windows, roofs, paving, exterior sheathing, and the types of materials that we generally see in that list that ends up on the agenda. And D is a request for a field change for a certificate of appropriateness, which has already been issued. Minor applications are the types of things that can be approved in review. And, you know, we see a list of those. We'll see material changes. You know, we're swapping out this window for that, roofing material for that, maybe changing a door. But you don't see a new house on approved in review. And you don't see new garage. Those are the types of things we've been seeing at the board, and we've even seen fence applications here more recently. We're sitting here talking about fences for an hour. So even and this is to be, from a practical standpoint, a filter. Because if we did every one of these as a board, we'd be here until 2 in the morning. So what happened here is something slipped through the filter that probably shouldn't have, and I don't think anybody's going to argue about that. And it doesn't matter there's no point in casting blame on it, because my point is, it's not too late to fix that, because the problem with approving a pool in that context is that's the type of thing that doesn't qualify as a minor application. It's the type of thing that this board, under the city code, is supposed to review. And if we haven't reviewed a pool yet, this would be the time to do it. Let's talk about the pool. And I'm not suggesting, from a procedural standpoint, how you come out on that vote. I would suggest that you hear the applicant out, and there may be ways to mitigate that.
I mean, I have some difficulty when we review the applications in review and we vote on them. I consider that the equivalent of a ratification of the actions of our committee. And I'm sure since it was 7-0, I voted in favor of this application. But maybe by oversight, that ratification shouldn't have taken place, where I'm smart enough to see that the application were more thorough or larger than it was. I'm prepared to go at both issues if the applicant is willing to do the merits of the pool and the fence. I'm willing to go to both issues tonight.
Well,
I was also willing to go to either issue, but if there's not a willingness to proceed with our reviewing the pool now as a full body, then I'm not sure where I go.
Well, I think the applicant's here. The board's going to need to make a decision on this either way, if the applicant wants to proceed, of course. But I think we need to make a threshold decision here as to whether we're here to talk about a fence or a pool and a fence and the other associated things going on and proposed at that site. And what I'm saying, Mr. Ebenhauser thinks, hey, we're only here to talk about a pool. You already decided that. What I'm saying is, whether that was a mistake or not, the HPC is able to revisit that. And it's not a desirable way of getting here, but it's the type of thing that should have been presented to this entire board. And it doesn't matter how we got here. It's just this is a thing that we can fix now. And it's, you know, it's not 10 months into construction. We're pre-building permit right now. Is that correct, Mr. Ebenhauser? I know it's not ideal, but we're pre-building permit right now.
I disagree with your take on this.
I got it.
All told, but you're correct. It's not constructed as of yet. There's no permit issued, so we're not under construction at this time.
Well, to me, it comes down to a question of whether or not the ratification really has, without everybody having full knowledge that they perhaps should have, whether it's effective and binds us. And I feel uncomfortable about that. That's why I'm willing to review the merits of the pool tonight, as well as the fence. I'm really saying that because I'd like to explore how it is that this pool falls short of what we might approve. That's the reason that
wouldn't it make sense to split it into the two pieces and have a determination of whether this thing is approved or not approved? The position that I believe that the HPC is in is that if the HPC makes a mistake, if the review committee makes a mistake, if I make a mistake, we are not bound by an administrative mistake, and that we can revisit it. And it seems to me that that's the first question to be answered. And then we would look at them,
But I think-
depending on how that
Yeah, I
comes
just
out.
think we have two different legal points.
No, that's exactly the point, is I think we need to decide, just for purposes of moving this along, where does the board stand on those two issues? You heard Mr. Ehrmanhauser believes that the board is foreclosed from considering the pool part of it. What I'm saying is, I don't agree with that. It's not a minor application, therefore it should have come to this board. This is the time, would be the time to consider that. Now, whether they want to proceed beyond that is another question. But we should I would suggest we take a vote to either rescind that prior voice vote, agenda vote, and consider the total of the application. And that's the decision, threshold decision I think the board should make, and then we can go to the merits of whatever we're
The
left.
only other thing I think it's unique here too, is that this went to the planning board too, right? This isn't something that was caught a month or so later. We're talking about having been approved back in May. We went through a lengthy process thereafter, and now have unanimous approval by the planning board, so it's difficult for me to envision how procedurally we now come back here and you're going to tell us potentially we don't approve this or we approve it with X, Y, and Z changes. We now have to go back for amended site plan approval from a board that unanimously granted it to us?
I don't know what the outcome of what that's going to be, but
make sense.
the planning board does not trump what the HPC does. It's separate and distinct. If you don't like an HPC decision, you could potentially appeal that to the zoning board.
Right.
Yeah.
But what the planning board does, because it's a strong commission, they have to overlap for the applicant to proceed with the building permit. They have to get the design approved here, and whatever planning board site plan things have to be dealt with there. But yeah, there's
been
the,
done, but
I don't think we properly exercised our jurisdiction with respect to reviewing the whole application. I mean, I think we need to do it again. So
I'm sorry,
I think we need to see the pool on the merits, and effectively, that reopens the case.
So I have a comment here. I believe we should also look at it as one submission, including the pool, and for simple reason that I'm not convinced that they're issues that should be separated because they're so integral to each other. Furthermore, looking at the review, pulled up from the file, the review documents that you submitted back in May, and they're actually significantly different than what you submitted to the zoning ordinance or zoning commission, as well as what you submitted for the application dated October 4th that we're reviewing tonight. In that, a couple things. One is that this site plan, the plot diagram, it specifically in the larger diagram calls a rear yard diagram. Well, it's not really a rear yard because it's a side yard because it's a corner lot on Decatur. Second, there's significantly different landscaping on the new drawing than the old drawing. Third, there's no indication of Decatur Street on the plot diagram or the parking there, so there was not really any ability, other than going and visiting the property, to distinguish that it was a corner lot and therefore had implications on the pool location. So for all those reasons, specifically around the original submission, I can understand why the mistake was made. Therefore, I think that we should review it all as one submission again.
I would simply add that in the small.
turn your mic on.
speak up and turn your mic on, please.
I would simply actually backstop what Chris said. This is not a minor application. I think in the small group review, when these are done, pools are almost always pushed to the. I can't even remember one that was approved at the small group review. And now I did not attend all of those in the first part of the year, but I think all the ones that I can recall have all come to the full commission. Those are major changes to the property, and they impact landscaping, the fencing, the street appearance, you know, a number of other aspects. So I cannot imagine that why we would not want to review the entire project here.
Do you need a motion for the way we should approach this? You asked before. I'd like to move that the application is submitted tonight be treated as an application on the whole for a pool and a surrounding fence.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland.
Yes, with a bit of an explanation, because it is unfortunate, it's a mistake, it is a burden then a bit on the owners, and it's unfortunate that it happened, but it is a mistake, and we should look at the application in its entirety.
So is that yes?
Mr. Becker.
Yes, I said yes. Yeah.
Great. Yes, for me as well, please.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chris, can I take a minute to discuss with my clients what this means? And I just wanted to, if we're to proceed in reviewing it all together, I'm not
Turn your mics, Johnson.
get that. I don't want to indicate I'm waiving my objection to the fact that I don't think procedurally we have the ability to do that. That said, if the board's going to require us to do it and we proceed forward, I don't want to indicate there's any waiver of that objection.
Your objection is noted, but you want to talk to them about whether you want to proceed on the merits
Yes.
of everything.
Yes, if I can take 1
Is
second.
that all right, Mr.?
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Need a tissue? From my office. Great. Bring the box.
I'm just thinking if it had said here, contributing in the pool, wouldn't we have all said, huh? I know, well, I've started to come in. Oh, that's right, yeah.
Review those. I review all the contributing ones. I never look at non-contributing unless I got lots of extra time. So if this
But
is
I
partly
see,
why.
I look for the words I don't like curb cut.
Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Chairman, after talking to my client, again, without waiving our objection procedurally to what we're here for, they have agreed to present this tonight in hopes of being able to reach a resolution with the board. So we're ready to present the entirety of the plan here. So Dave, if you can, you've got the site plan that's up before the board tonight. Talk about what it is that's being proposed in that rear yard. And for an HPC standard, in terms of what's proposed, the in-ground pool, the fencing, how they meet the historic character of not only the property, but of the zoning district.
And before you start talking, can you grab that mic and hit the green button? And you can stand with it if you want.
Okay, the client is proposing to landscape, put a swimming pool, add a fence, what is this side yard, because this is a corner property as mentioned previously. So with the corner property, you have two fronts, one rear, one side. This would be the side yard, if I'm interpreting that correctly. I don't want to speak out of line from a zoning point. That is correct. Okay, so this is in the side yard. The side yard is comprised of a grassed area, sodded area, along with the additional landscaping that we are proposing, which is in compliance with the Historic Preservation Commission's desires for specific landscaping. The swimming pool is an 18 by 25-foot swimming pool, has a 10-foot setback off of the side yard, which is your north property line, and has a 10-foot setback off of the eastern property line, which would be the rear yard, since this is a side yard. And then your front yard setback is a 22-foot, 10-inch setback to the swimming pool. And it's a 23-foot, 6-inch setback to the water's edge. All of these setbacks are in compliance with zoning regulations, and there were no variances sought relative to the placement or the size of the pool. The size of the pool and its location are within zoning regulations. And
Dave, we also, there's some images on the bottom related to patio pavers that were being proposed. There's a patio paver area in the rear of the building, albeit the side yard, that's being proposed as well.
yeah, there's a rear patio paver which connects the main structure to the pool, so people are not walking through grass and sod and dirt and getting dirt in the pool and clogging up the filters. It's just for a practical nature. Previously, we had pavers all the way around, and we took those away because it was a zoning regulation to remove those. So we complied with the zoning regulations, and that created more landscaping. It created more greenery. It created a feature that is more appropriate with the historic nature of this zone.
So what's important often from a historic perspective too is how this is going to impact, if at all, the streetscape, right? So think of this along Decatur if you're looking into that yard. With what's being proposed in terms of the landscaping, is this proposed in-ground swimming pool going to have a detrimental effect to the streetscape?
In my opinion, it will not. From the streetscape, you won't see it. There's plenty of landscaping buffer behind the wrought iron fence. As I previously testified, we're using American holly. American holly grows to a relatively dense status, and it's hard to see through them. And they're beautiful plants. They are plants that are, once again, in accordance with your preservation district standards. And we have a tree that is proposed that is going to cut the corner off and be another large feature that would block any view from the street. And this also provides a sound buffer, not just to the westerly property line, which fronts on Decatur, but at the northerly property line, which is adjacent to the property to the north. That buffer continues for not just a visual buffer, but a sound buffer.
And then we talked earlier about a proposed wrought iron fence, right? Can you talk about color, height, things of that related to that wrought iron? It's black, right?
Yeah, wrought iron is black, and wood fences are permitted in the historic district, but we really believe that we wanted to get away from that. And since we were coming back, we needed to lower the fence relative to the zoning ordinance to comply with their regulations. So we decided to make it a wrought iron fence because we believe that fits more appropriately in the historic district, and it enhances the streetscape. And plus the historical nature, it enhances the historical nature of what we're trying to propose to do with the wrought iron fence. And it's black, it's 4 feet high, which is in compliance with zoning regulations.
And the wrought iron fence will be to the street side of the proposed landscaping, correct? The landscaping will be inside that fence.
Yes, the wrought iron fence will be just behind the property line off of Decatur, the west property line off of Decatur, and directly behind that will be the landscaping.
So that wrought iron fence on the exterior of the landscape, it'll propose an aesthetic enhancement, I assume, right?
Yes.
Historically as well as just...
Yes, it'll be visual from the streetscape.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we're proposing in the rear there, David? pretty much sums up what's proposed through.
Now, the photographs here, we're putting the pavers connecting the pervious area of the house to the swimming pool, and these pavers are located with the Old Town Cobble, and an Old Town Cobble is a historic nature. Once again, complies with your desires and the historic preservation standards to be something that is has a visual fenestration and feel for the historic nature that we're desiring to comply with to satisfy this board. In addition, we have pictures of the fence, the existing fence along the rear eastern property line, which is remaining. And then we have the picture of the wrought iron fence, and the gate that is proposed with that is going to be of the same nature, same height, same color, which, as I testified previously, is connected to the house, wraps westerly with a gate facing the parking, and there's a little gate that's facing the west side of the property, and then that gate then continues out to the street to Decatur, and then heads north and continues along the north property line. And that's visual.
Wrought iron as well, correct?
The gate will be wrought iron, and the fence will be proud of all landscaping, so anybody looking from outside the property, will see, the historical nature of the wrought iron fence, and then the landscaping behind it, which is providing the buffer.
Any questions, Mr. Shorten?
Because I didn't bring my magnifying glass, would you repeat for me what the full, I see the tree on Decatur. Tell me what the two pieces of foliage are at the northwest and the southwest corner of the pool area.
The trees?
Yeah, there's what appear to be on the northwest corner of the pool and the southwest corner.
Being
In addition to the American holly.
Southwest, they are,
Redbuds. Thank you.
so I was just getting a look, okay.
Got it.
There you go. I was getting ready to look on the landscaping schedule. Thank you. Yes.
They did not. No, we met all coverage requirements. We were originally, Board may recall, we had originally proposed additional pavers. We removed those as part of our planning board application, added more grass to the rear yard in order to ensure that we stayed under any lot coverage requirements. So we did do that.
Fences between the existing wooden one and the new proposed wrought iron one are connected to the house at both ends so that you have a complete circle around the pool area that someone could not wander into the pool area without going through the gate or through the building itself.
Correct, it is enclosed.
Yes, it is enclosed. Thank you, board. Thank you. Thank you, board members.
As typical, we go around the room. Jim, you want to start?
Sure. And I guess I'll go, in fact, I don't find this really very difficult at all. I'll take the fence as part of the application and speak to it. I think the choice of the wrought iron was an improvement. I think it's consistent with similar fences on Hughes, on Decatur, on Jackson, and as a material, wrought iron is durable, it's going to look fine. So the fence is not an issue for me at all, and I would have approved the fence separately. With respect to the pool, and it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said 22 plus feet from the right-of-way to the edge of the pool, 22, 23 feet?
2210 to the edge of the coping and 23.6 to the face of the water.
It's a fair amount of space. It's not as far as some we've seen, but it's a fair amount of space. And I'm favorably impressed by the density of the foliage that's being planted. And I want to make sure that that barrier to Decatur with the American holly, and you've got a 4-foot fence, and behind it you have holly growing. I want to make sure two things, that the holly is planted densely enough so that when you're walking along Decatur, you see a beautiful fence and you don't see through the holly to the pool. That's really my concern. And I'd like it to be dense. I'd also want you to know that we've had circumstances where landscaping plans in critical places have been neglected over time. And so I would be in favor of of keeping along with the plan as you've proposed it, but I want to make sure that your landscaping plan is maintained for a long time. And in fact, when I say a long time, I mean I'd like it to run with the land so that it becomes a covenant to maintain that landscaping plan, and deviations from it will require some kind of action with the city. So I'd be in favor of your proposal with a fence. I'd be in favor of your proposal with the pool, as long as it were densely landscaped and that you maintain that landscape for, let's just say, as long as the structure is there. So it would run with the land. That's my view.
Janice?
Yeah, I agree. The iron fence is a very appropriate choice. And the concern about the pool from its visibility and the impact, the inappropriateness of a pool in a historic district, these are all issues that we grapple with. I don't know if we have the authority to deny it just because we don't think it's appropriate. Our design standards say that the pools need not to be located visibly. So everything Jim said about a covenant to maintain a landscape buffer would definitely be part of what I would consider a reasonable approval from us. That's about it.
Thank you.
So just a couple of additional remarks. The initial height of the American holly will be what when it's installed?
When,
The height of the American holly, when it's initially installed, will be how high?
Yeah.
generally about 48 inches.
48?
48 inches generally is the height.
Oh, wait a minute, we have a disagreement in the audience.
Well, we're not doing back and forth right now. There'll be an opportunity
Speak
for
for the
public comment.
applicant.
Yeah,
You can buy them in various heights. So there
Buy
can be
them, buy them
stipulations as to-
tall.
So
Pardon
here's-
me?
Buy them tall.
Buy them tall.
No, I would suggest bringing mature specimens, and that we're not going to wait 15 years for these things to grow to cover everything. So I would like to see mature specimens pretty tall to make sure nobody sees through, because that's a very prominent location in town, right in the heart of the district.
Yeah, pretty tall would be,
Let's get
Still in the middle
control
of what I
back.
wanted to talk about, if
Sure.
you don't mind.
thank you.
So I have an opinion about pools that may not be in alignment with what our standards say, and I think our role here is not to express opinions as much as it is to ensure that what is being installed and what is being approved by this body is in accordance with our standards. Our standards on page 45 say regarding site elements such as decks, patios, fire pits, pools, and trellises should be located in the rear or side yard, check, side yard, and not be visible from the public right-of-way. So I have only two issues with regard to this. One is that when you install the pool, the initial planting should be at least 5 feet 4 inches high, because that's higher than just above average eye height for humans, according to graphic standards, right? You're familiar with that, right?
Yes,
Right?
yes, that would be.
That's one.
That would be accurate.
Two, there is a view as you're walking up Decatur when you're standing in front of the parking lot. In fact, I've got a photograph of it right here. You see that little 2-foot stone wall that's returning perpendicular to the road? I can't quite do this because of my arm, but
John, is that something that the applicant submitted, or is that something you brought?
I brought this.
Okay, so
Show this.
let's mark that as let's mark that as HPC 1.
Okay.
And
John,
why don't you take a look at that,
Things around
your
from time
client?
to time.
So just for ease of point of reference.
So, right, so based on the site plan that I see, it will be visible from the right-of-way over that little stone wall, and the ivy that you have running north-south along Decatur does not make a return east-west back towards the house. Therefore, we will be able to see the pool from, I can show you.
Yeah.
Stuck in this
Use
area.
your good eye.
Correct.
So what I'm talking about is, yeah, so as I'm walking up the street here, I'll be able to see the pool, right?
Yes.
So if you put that same planting as a return to here, far enough so that no matter what angle is, we can't see the pool, I think you're fine.
Excellent.
Yeah, that would have been our.
So therefore, with regard to the fence, I also want to compliment you, because there are two different wrought iron fences on that property. One is the one around the courtyard to the north, where we're talking about enclosing the pool. The other is on the other side, actually along Hughes. And the original fence, I believe, is the one along Hughes. And it has a solid top rail, which is very similar to the one you're proposing, which is different than the one that's in this photograph, which I think is more recent. So I would like to compliment you on selecting the more appropriate fence. Other than that, I think as long as you abide by what it says on page 45, as we just discussed, with the original height and that angle, I could approve this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I tend to agree with everything everyone else has said, but in the 22 feet, or is it 22 feet from the pool to the street?
Yes.
Okay, you have that little gazebo with the bride in it, or whatever that is there? Yes, I mean, what's going to happen to that? Because that's kind of iconic. She stays, she'll be pushed up further?
Where that is where the pool would be, because that little structure is the decoration, it's not a structure, it's got the walls, but that is more than 30 feet off the street. That's where the pool will be, right there, so
So it will be removed then?
we have no place to put that gazebo, but we will keep the statue.
So just for the record, the gazebo is going to go in place of the pool.
Yes, there's no place to put that.
It's not a store.
It's a shame, though, because it is, it's been there for a long time, and, if there was any way that that could be moved into the 22 feet to help provide a buffer.
Move our fence out.
Yeah.
Lorraine?
Yeah, I tend to agree with everything that everyone said. The only question that I have legally, being able to take into account what Mr. Testa said, is that something that can be attributed to the property as far as the landscaping and making sure that that is
As a deed
Yes.
restriction,
as
you
a deed
mean?
restriction?
If it's a condition for purposes of mitigating and controlling, and preserving,
Streetscape.
the board, if the board would not approve that there, but for a robust landscaping plan that is designed and built to last, then I think it's reasonable to include that as a condition. I would just, we need to talk about the details of that.
Yeah.
And I think that the requirement to keep that in place will be, one, tied to what's being approved tonight, and then it would be in favor of the city and the HPC, and any modifications of that would have to come before the board again if there was a change, a proposed change.
Okay.
And Lorraine, we've done this on a few occasions before.
Okay, this is the first one that I've been a
Yeah.
part of.
And
But-
in fact, one of them was actually to shield the pool.
Okay. I like the idea,
Yeah.
just didn't legally know.
I mean, the concern is that you put it up, it looks nice for 3 to 5 years, and
You're
then after
absolutely
3 to
right.
5 years, it withers, and there's nothing there but a pool.
Nobody's maintaining it, exactly. So, wonderful. Thank you.
Pete?
It always seems incongruous to me whenever we approve a pool near a commercial area. One is very busy, the other one's supposed to be a place of quiet respite. But that being said, as long as Jake has suggested, mature plants go in to, keep the two separate, no one sees it, it's not part of Karma's, it's not part of a private life, then I would agree with that. I also was concerned, as Mr. Hamilton, about lot coverage, because there seems to be an awful lot of pavers there already, but if that's within the bounds, then that's fine.
I can certainly represent we're under on coverage, just because we went through that exercise with the board.
Okay.
We did confirm that.
Thank you.
Kevin, your mic.
Thanks. Just one quick comment. I can't honestly say that I'm enamored with the pool, but on the other hand, and I think part of that, the reason for that honestly is, I think part of the charm and the historic character of Cape May is its gardens. We have a garden tour, in fact, and so I just think that it's a shame to see something like that lost in this kind of a plan. I guess like John, I agree. Our requirement is to focus on what's allowed in our standards and to stick to the standards as our guidebook, our North Star. So I don't have anything else to add. I just shame to see another garden lost.
I have with the best plantings possible, it's hard to have a total barrier, a total wall, and making the pool invisible. This is in the heart of the historic district. Part of the streetscape includes not just the visual, but the ambiance, the sound, and people playing in a pool. The landscaping is not going to buffer that, and is certainly not in keeping with our period of significance as a Victorian community. The pool is permanent, of course, in a relative sense, where the landscaping is not. And even with deed restrictions and everything else, 5 years from now or something, or 8, 10 years from now, and different members move on, the deed restriction may in fact not provide the protection that the city needs, that our National Historic Landmark needs. So I'm not in favor. I don't believe this pool meets the standards that have been established. We talk about not visible and in a side yard. Normally, though, that discussion is significantly further back than 22 feet. And so I don't believe the plan meets the standards that have been established for pools in the historic district. Do I have a motion?
Well, I will make a motion to approve the application as submitted, covering the fence and covering the pool, with the conditions that a landscaping plan involving mature plantings behind the fence of at least, what did we say, 5 feet high? At least 5'4", be used in that landscaping plan, and the plan be carried out so that the plantings be as dense as feasible, maintaining the plants, and that the entire landscaping plan be subject to a covenant that would run with the land for the maintenance of the plan, the covenant to be in favor of the city and the city's designees, which presumably be the HPC. I'm sorry this is such a long condition, but that would be the condition to the approval motion that I make. Did I miss something?
I think we do have some public here to, I think, make some comments, which the board has the discretion to open up and consider before we take a vote.
Fine, I just made the motion, it
No,
can be
no.
seconded, and people can talk about it all they want.
Yeah, open to the public, is there?
Is there a second to my motion?
Well, let's hear from the public.
Well,
Do you want to withdraw, hold your motion for a second, and then we can revisit it?
I withdraw the motion, subject to the right to make it again.
Sure.
I'm only asking this. When we were at the planning board level, there was a lot of public comment related to the zoning criteria. I mean, if there can be an instruction, I really don't want to get into it related to lot coverage. And
I don't know what-
that aren't before the body.
I don't know what they're going to say. We'll have to make it.
Wouldn't think it would be appropriate.
I will say that there was discussion of setbacks and things like that. We're here to talk about streetscape and the impact on the historic district. So I would ask the applicant and any members of the public to focus their comments on what we're here to discuss tonight.
Would go to the mic, would you make sure the mic is turned on, it's green, and we need your name and your address.
Hey, I'm Thomas Scanlon, 128 Decatur Street.
How do you spell your last name, sir? I'm sorry.
Scanlan.
Thank you.
Good? Okay. So my name's Thomas Scanlon. I'm speaking on behalf of my entire family, my brother's here, the owners of 128 Decatur Street. My grandmother bought our Decatur Street home in the late 1950s. My mother and my Aunt Marie acquired the house in 1967. My first job was at Frank's Playland. My Social Security card has 128 Decatur Street as my address, so I know the block, I know the character of the community. I remember when the parcel of land in question was the Glenwood Annex, a Decatur Street address. I remember when it was a drive-through bank, then a retail store, then a vacant eyesore for years. Frank and Lois Curro, the previous owners, bought the property and turned it into a showcase for the street at considerable expense and effort, asking nothing in return. Countless visitors to Cape May stopped to admire and photograph this private garden every single day. I watched people do it today. If you allow the pool to be installed, so it's more than a fence, it's a pool, the attractive feature will be gone forever. Instead, we will have an in-ground pool, concrete or paver patio, absentee landlords with absolutely no supervision of how that pool will be utilized. Remember, this is a whole house rental. The owners are never there. I want to emphasize that the majority of the impacted houses on Decatur Street, 130, 128, 126, 124, 122, are family homes, not rental units. A pool directly across the street from our house will have a negative impact on my lifestyle and that of my neighbors. It will impact my ability to enjoy my property. Now, how do I know this? So where I live in Maryland, our neighbor behind us has a pool, and it's easily 3 times the distance, way farther away than on Decatur Street. And there's a huge stand of tall trees in between, a lot bigger than some hollies. So we cannot see the pool, but we can hear it loud and clear. So if you live in Cape May and you know how sound carries, and if you know Decatur Street, you know how busy and how loud it can be now. So let's not add the potential cacophony of an in-ground swimming pool. Just the noise alone from a pool will have a negative impact on our street. So I respectfully suggest that you review the Cape May Historic Design Standards, page 5, states that the purpose of the standards is to ensure that Cape May preserves its rich architectural heritage for future generations. So the visibility of an in-ground pool, chairs, maybe umbrellas, concrete, the patio, are hardly Victorian, hardly historic. And in regards to visibility, remember page 12 of your standards states that vegetation, seasonal foliage, and fencing are not considered, as they may be removed over time. So in other words, the concessions that the owners of the Empress made do not in any way address the issues at hand, visibility or the noise pollution. So in closing, the street address of the Empress is Hughes Street, so technically the area for the proposed pool is a back or side yard, but historically the lot in question had a Decatur Street address. And from Decatur Street, from our homes, it's a front yard, visible from the street. So we ask that you deny the permit for the construction of the swimming pool. And while the pool may not violate the standard, the letter of the ordinances, it certainly violates the intent and spirit of the HPC design standards. Sorry. And just to add, I was at the planning meeting, and the only reason it passed planning is because they felt their hands were tied by the ordinance. And many members stated that.
Look, we're going to let everybody make a record tonight, including the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
And-
And I want to add one little thing from my Aunt
What-
Marie.
Wait, he's not done.
Oh,
I would,
sorry.
I would just say that generally, folks, when we have a city council meeting, we'll usually keep our public comments to 5 minutes. And we'll allow some latitude if there's some, rational basis for that, and you're touching on something. But if you have made these comments before, I would just, if it's about the standards, and you were hitting on that at the end, so that's when my ears perked up.
yeah, well, okay, so I read them. So I can be done. Other than Marie Wendt, who has been owned it since 1967, could not be here tonight, and she just wanted me to emphasize.
I object
So
to
we-
this, too.
And that's a legitimate objection. If somebody is here,
Okay.
we can testify from personal knowledge, but we can't have, somebody said something, or,
Gotcha. Will do, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Counselor, my name's Mark Sucher. Jane Lyons and I owned 124 Decatur Street.
Can you spell your last name for me, sir?
Of course, Sucher.
Thank you.
Let me just start by saying the reference to page 12 and the fact that greenery, shrubbery, and fences are not considered ameliorative of an issue having to do with Victorian environment is probably the most germane issue right here. Counselor in the presentation has proceeded to present before this commission a solution. I agree with my neighbor Tom that it does not actually address the issue of keeping Victorian because, again, in your own guidelines, it is what they're offering is something that is, in fact, considered not important and changeable, mutable, if you will. I happen to agree that by framing the argument this way, it seems that as they went across the whole commission, everybody was narrowly focusing on only this solution. We have not only 124 Decatur Street, we have 516 Carpenter's Lane. We have worked with this particular commission before. You've come up with very creative solutions and required of us creative solutions to make that a part of the central district. It's the home of the peanut butter company, just to give you a proper reference. And I would suggest that as you consider your solution to this problem, I would ask that you not be limited by their narrowing of your focus, which is a classic way to just push something through. We're asking you to take a little more time, be a little more inventive, require of them to be more inventive, because what they're doing right now is basically a taste of, in my personal opinion, Wildwood. And so you're not doing anything particularly inventive. You're saying, oh, we accept your solution. It's not necessary for you to do that. So as you consider this, it may be a bit more work on your part, but it is a permanent solution. When a pool goes in the ground, they do not come out. When plantings are made, when patios are laid down, they do not move unless somebody forces them or they find that they are not economically viable anymore. I've never known a pool to come out of the ground. So as you consider this, it's not just hollies, and hollies have a very slow rate of growth. You, sir, know that. And even if you get giant ones, they die. They get diseased. You can see through them. And a 4-foot fence with a swimming pool splashing behind may create a attractive nuisance, but that's a different kind of liability between the owners and their insurance company.
Not an attractive nuisance.
So, as I said, I'm asking on behalf of all the neighbors who are residents across the street to not just be limited by their solutions, but ask them to be more inventive, continue this discussion with them. I'm sure you can come up with a positive solution that will actually benefit both the wider notion of historic Cape May as well as Decatur Street in particular. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
So you're the applicant, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. You want to come stand with me, buddy? Sure. All right, thanks.
Presentation is-
This is my son Avery, my wife Cinda, my daughter Raven.
We're opening it up to everybody. And
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
if you're going to speak, we got to get into the microphone. I was going to give,
you want us to summarize it?
yeah, if this is part of your summation, that's
No,
fine.
I'll speak on behalf of our family. If my son wants to add something, that's great. I appreciate the comments from the board. We felt,
Just to identify the speaker, you're Jason
I'm Jason Clewe, the applicant.
Clewe is how you pronounce that, correct?
Clewe. Yep, Clewe is how you pronounce it.
All right.
Can you guys not hear me? I'm sorry.
We're making a transcript right now, potentially. So I just want to
Understood.
make sure whoever's speaking identifies himself.
Understood.
So that
So I heard the comments by the board members with respect to, the heights of the plantings and making sure that it is in fact going to, hide the view of the pool as the standards in the town state that they have to. And we went into this process knowing that and have no problem, with that. For us, this is, it's a family home. It's a home that we use about 2 weeks a year. We wish we could use it more. Our kids are very young. They're very involved, so we can't get here as often as we want. When we're not here, we do rent it. And without doing that, we couldn't afford our home at all. So we're grateful that we have the opportunity to own it. We're blessed, Mr. and Mrs. Curo, that we bought the house from, did a tremendous job building a wonderful masterpiece. We really feel like what we're going to do is going to enhance the property, not take anything away. We have a garden in the side rear yard of the property, and it is often photographed. But what no one has testified about, and this is our issue as the owners, this garden is a trespassing issue, quite frankly. The public doesn't realize that it's not public property. They come onto the property, particularly during the busy season. They bring in food wrappers, beer bottles. They leave them in the garden, and then it invites raccoons and vermin and everything else into the garden, both when we're there and when guests are there. And there currently isn't a way to keep people out of that area. So after we bought the property and started realizing this, we said, look, we want to do something for our kids. We want to do something for us to enhance the property so that we can enjoy our own space, and currently it's a safety issue. People walk in and out of the property all the time, some of them realizing they're trespassing and many of them don't. And that's something that I don't think anyone realized. It's not just people taking pictures. They leave behind evidence of, if they're coming there. So that to us is a concern, and I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that, otherwise, and, the other thing too, I wanted to make sure people realized also is that this part of the property was a drive-through bank. It was, this part of the property actually wasn't part of the home that was built in 1885 originally. This was a bank that came off of Washington Mall and was divided into two lots 25 years ago. So, there is no historical significance of that particular part of the property, at all. We have no problem with the comments and with, maintaining the property and having a covenant for the landscaping moving forward. And, this property is our pride and joy, and we'll make sure that we maintain it as such. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ma'am, are you raising your hand to speak? Please step up to the microphone if you like.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Just need your name and address in the microphone.
Chris?
Yes.
So we closed public comment and now we're opening it again, right? That was
He was trying to see if anybody else wanted to speak. So, ma'am, if you want to speak, go ahead.
It's kind of high. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
And let me just, before she speaks, this is a regular how we got here. So if anybody wants to say their piece, let's get it out now, put it on the record, and allow the board to make a full decision.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, ma'am, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Jane Lyons, and I'm at 124 Decay Street. 60 years ago, we won. We really came before it was really what it is now. So but everybody knows that. I just want to just help them that if you want to put in a pool and you are afraid that something is going to go wrong, you just put up with people who are going to, with their whatever bottles of beer or whatever's coming in. I've never seen it happen, by the way. But that just make it easy when your people are coming. Put up a gate and lock it and give them the key. I mean, it's not going to be a big deal to have people sitting on the...
I can streamline this. This board is not in the business of considering trespassing and trash cans and things
Well, I
like
was
that.
just trying to help them.
And I understand that, but I'm just,
Okay,
we're just talking, do you have any comments that you want to make about the streetscape or how that pool's going to look from the street? Is that anything that you want to add on that?
Yes, I've taken so many pictures over the years and over the last months because I knew that this was going to be happening again. I mean, this, okay. And I've drawn pictures of how it might work and so it worked without having to have things that aren't going to grow in time for this, but to make it just small. If it has to be, it doesn't have to be that big. And that all of those, there are so many things that can be done, but it's not being done. And it needs to be looked at that very, very carefully. And thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else?
John Scanlon, Scanlan, 128 Decatur Street. I would like to make one correction. The drive-in bank used to be a house before it was the drive-in bank. Also, if you look at the even side of Decatur Street, it's residential, and I think a pool would be completely inappropriate with the character of the street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in this room that wants to speak on this? Going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. Mr. Amenhauser, we did have some other public comment here after I said I was going to give you a chance to give your closing statement here. So do you have anything that you want to add?
Well, Chris had touched on a few things. I think a lot of the issues, part of the concern I had when public comment was open, was that they're zoning-related issues. They're not historic design standard issues. The issues related to noise or shrinking a pool when the lot coverage that we have is 18% below where we're allowed to be. Some of these things that people want are just selfish in nature. They're not required, and I do not believe anyone cited to anything during public comment that indicates that what we're doing does not comply with the design standards. I know people had an opinion, but it had seemed that that opinion differed than what many of the members of this board brought up earlier during deliberations as well. I just think for those reasons, a lot of the issues that were brought up were just not relevant to why we're here tonight before this body.
I have one question for the applicant, but through you. We talked about the potential for a deed restriction,
Covenant,
a deed covenant,
yes.
in connection with approval. Would the comments that I heard tonight were 5 feet 4 inches in height? Mature, at planting, mature specimens, a continuous landscaping buffer.
Yes.
And then the return that Mr. Becker referenced too, that's not shown on the plan now, but he referenced that,
Yes, where it turns back in toward the
if you're walking from the beach toward the area of the Ugly Mug, you would have a chance to see that if you didn't add an additional landscaping in that return. Would the applicant propose to this board that they would agree to that covenant as a condition of approval and meeting all those conditions and understanding that that would be a continuous obligation, and so that if the failure of that landscaping were to occur and you could see
Yes,
the pool, see through it, the HPC office, just to give you an example, the HPC officer could go out there with a copy of the approval and say, you're now in violation because this is no longer continuous, and you need to keep and maintain that. So it would be a covenant running with the land so long as that
pool is there.
that pool is there. And it would be in favor of the city of Cape May, and if it were to be, any proposal to change that would have to come back to this board. So with that framework in mind, that's the type of thing that I could see the board entertaining from a legal standpoint. Would the applicant accept those as a condition and agree to those?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
I was going to make a motion before I made it. I withdrew it, but before I make it again, I'd like to make another statement. I think the question of pools is very divisive in this town, and there is a concern about how appropriate they are in various sections, including the historic district, which is very large. I don't think this is the time to make a statement that people in the historic district are not entitled to have pools. So I think if the city really wants to approach that issue, this is bigger than an HPC issue, and it needs to be done on a citywide basis by the city council establishing rules with respect to pools going forward. I don't think that the having a pool per se is a violation of our design standards. I think the pool has to fit within the design standards, and I think even though people have mentioned the idea that there is a noise concept, but the streetscape is primarily a visible thing. And I think the standard, and the dominating part of the standard, is the visibility standard with respect to this pool. And we are here, I think, not to deny automatically a pool, even though it may be an inconvenience to some. It's permitted. People have a right to use their land. And I think our job here is to allow that pool to be put in subject to compliance with our standards. Pools are mentioned in our standards. And the primary place where they are addressed is visibility. And so from my standpoint, provided we are effective with respect to reducing and eliminating the visibility of this pool, I'm in favor of it being put in. So I will make the motion that the application as submitted tonight be approved, but it be approved with respect to the pool having the condition of a landscaping plan, a thorough landscaping plan with mature plantings, with the return being covered, and that plan, in fact, rather than simply stated here as a condition, that plan be subject to running with the land for so long as the pool is part of the property. It will run and be recorded as a covenant to be maintained. It will be in favor of the city and its designee. And I would say that the final landscaping plan, because we're talking about mature plantings here, and I know you're going to go back and redo that, the final landscaping plan be submitted to our review committee so that it can be finalized and encapsulated in the covenant. And I'm sorry if that's too long a motion, but that's my motion.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have another motion?
Well, I have a comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
that might have an impact on the motion. So one of the things that occurs to me is it's really important that when one makes a mistake to acknowledge it. And I made a mistake. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Because on page 45, as I said, our role here is to make sure that what is being approved is in compliance or not with our standards. So, unfortunately, I was only reading from page 45 of our standards, which say that elements such as pools should be located in a rear or side yard and be not visible from the public right-of-way. But as these gentlemen pointed out on page 12 of our standards, there's a whole section on visibility. And unfortunately, by the letter of the law of these standards, not visible is defined as not able to be seen by a person standing in any public thoroughfare. Vegetation, comma, seasonal foliage, comma, and fencing are not considered, as they may be removed over time. Therefore, I can no longer support this by virtue of the definition in our own standards.
And John, that means they can be removed unless they're covered by a covenant. They can't be removed. This covenant runs with the land.
we have another issue here, and I disagree with your observation about sound.
I'm sorry, you disagree with?
Your earlier comment about sound. In fact, the architect explained that the landscaping would help soundproof. A swimming pool is, by definition, especially in a rental property, and the people that are renting have, I would agree, they're there on vacation, they're partying, they should, but it's loud, and streetscape includes sound. When you walk around Cape May in the evening, or you live in the historic district, one of the noticeable issues is how quiet it is, and that you have the enjoyment or the historic provenance of not people celebrating and loud and cheering and doing all those things. This is not Wildwood. This is Cape May. This is a National Historic Landmark. And I don't think that the pool meets the standard. The standard has been read a couple times.
This very board has applied perpetual covenants with respect to landscaping and other coverage to approve
We're
pool coverage.
talking about streetscape, which is more than that. For example, I already discussed the sound.
The city happens to have sound ordinances with respect to violations of those ordinances, and they are
That's a whole
policed.
different issue, and so.
I don't agree.
It,
No.
well,
But be that
it
as it
is.
may, you have your view, I have mine.
Well, I think the historic preservation view is the dominant one in this instance. This is a National Historic Landmark city. The other thing is, when we talk about landscaping, and normally when side yard pools are set back further and the landscaping is the idea is to buffer it. The idea of landscaping and what the Victorians was in fact to enhance the property, was to provide a garden-like environment, and building a great big barrier is not the landscaping that is envisioned when we talk about streetscape. So I don't think this meets the standard at all, but
Well, apparently, your fellow commissioners agree with you because there's been no second to my motion.
I'll second your motion.
Well, thank you.
And that your motion included the 4-foot fence, correct, Jim?
It included the application with the 4-foot fence, the extensive buffering, and the mature
Covenant.
use plus coverage, so that the pool was not visible.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Copeland. Mr. Copeland?
No, for all the reasons that I've stated, and it's not necessary to repeat. By way of a sidebar discussion, though, the garden that is, you're concerned about being protected from citizens not realizing that it's a private property, a fence is appropriate and is easily approved either as part of this or something else. So to the pool, I'm no.
Mr. Becker?
No, and I apologize for my earlier error.
Mr. Stevenson?
I had a few problems with this. Even though the address is 501 Hughes, in reality, the Decatur Street side really looks like the front of the house. It's much more grander than the Hughes Street side, and for passersby, that's the front of the house. I've always felt it kind of jarring when I walk past there, and there's 7 cars parked right up to the sidewalk. And I was like, well, how did this get here in the historic district? But that garden offset that, and it provided a buffer between the commercial district of the mall and the residential area along Decatur Street.
So your vote?
So my point is that I'm not objecting to the pool as much as I am the removal of the garden.
So is it a yes or a no, Jake?
It is.
Let him,
Let me.
it's important that each of the board members explain their vote, so please finish what your thought was.
And because that offset the harshness of the parking in the front. So I'm not objecting to the pool as much as I am the removal of the garden. I believe that the fence would be appropriate if the garden is kept there and no pool. So my vote is no.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Ms. Pisagno?
Make sure you can turn your mic on, sorry.
Thank you. Although earlier I seemed inclined another way, I have 2 points to make. One, I was not aware that it was a whole house rental. I was thinking of a pool that was part of a family pool, more quiet, more of a sense of retreat, something of that nature. And you all say, we all say, it is not contributing. But when I was a little girl, that house belonged to our plumber, Richard Bell, and his wife, Lorraine. And it sat on that corner, and it was a dusty white, and there were trees all over the place. Mr. Bell died, and she started to date a man by the name of Charlie Shields, and that's how it became the Bell Shields house. And to me, it was always something as if we'd see in Savannah or Charleston, historic, cool, warm, not a lot of hardscape. And for those reasons, the whole house rental and the fact that I do feel that we should keep it more in with what it was, my answer is no.
Thank you. Mr. Testa.
I feel like I've made my position clear before. I think the applicant has submitted an application that meets our design standards. I believe that they focus on visibility. I believe that they've offered a sufficient undertakings to maintain the pool from being invisible. I think the issue of having pools or not in the historic district is not for ours. Obviously, I'm going to vote yes in favor of my motion.
Ms. Wilson-Strudick.
I'm going to vote no, for the reasons that Mr. Becker determined and that were stated by the community about the landscaping not being a true buffer for visibility's sake. But also, in looking at the property report, when this property that B remembers as a contributing, and I also remember it that way, why it was removed, the survey says the new large addition on the rear is counter to the prevalence of less architectural detail and smaller proportions the further back on the buildings. This house can be used as a local example of creating a false sense of history when altering an historic structure. For these reasons, this house can now be considered to be a non-contributing house in Cape May. This is exactly what we are trying to work against on this board. It's not easy. And I think that when we talk about a pool, we made a mistake not to notice that that was part of the original application. It went through review. That was on us. That is an error, and we apologize. But if I had seen on the list of approved and review pool, I definitely would have made a deeper effort at looking at what this was all about. And I'm sorry I didn't notice it in May, because I do empathize with the frustration you must have going through so many different hearings and confusing answers. So that's my response.
Mr. Hammerin.
I also am very sorry that we're at this position where we're going back again and again and again to the well. I am fine with the fence, but I would respectfully decline the pool. I think part of that reasoning is that if our duty is to preserve the historic nature of Cape May, I think that adding the pool in that location really is maybe enhancing the value of the house, but it is not contributing to the historic nature and character of Cape May, and therefore I can't see to approve that.
Thank you.
I make a request for the transcript now, or should I make that?
I mean, you can, you know what you can do.
Yep.
So just for the record, the motion fails, and the application's denied.
Thank you. Next order of business, 7 Ocean Street LLC, 7 Ocean Street, Block 1056, Lot 13.02. This is a key contributing house that wants to introduce a vinyl porch enclosure. Okay. Would you make sure your mic is on? And we need your name and your relationship to the property, please.
Yeah, hi. My name is Manny Demutis. I'm the managing member.
Excuse me for a second. Excuse me, can we have silence over here? Stop. Stop. Sorry,
That's okay.
sorry.
My name's Manny Demutis. I'm the managing member of 7 Ocean Street LLC, better known as the Inn at Cape May. And my address in Cape May is 22 Ocean Street.
I'm Dwayne Ridgway, the general manager of the Inn of Cape May.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing us. The Inn at Cape May, we have embarked over the last 2 years on the complete restoration of our 130-year old hotel. So we've been in various stages of that. What we recognize is when we took over this endeavor, we committed to a year-round, being open year-round. We felt that it was in the best health of our employees and the community itself to, muscle through and create a standard experience for 12 months a year. And so we've done that, and it's been very beneficial for us in the fact that we're able to keep our employees, working, we're able to do all these things. We're able to maintain a level of life in the building. At 130 years, we closed down for, the first year we closed down for Christmas break, and we had $26,000 worth of busted pipes. So we realized pretty quickly that we should keep people in the building as much as possible. But having said that, what we realized is that in the wintertime, because of how we are situate on Ocean Street, that we have a natural wind block from the northern wind in our rotunda, which is the round part of our porch. And so we went around town and saw other historic buildings and said, is there a way that we can, in the off-season, block the wind, still maintain the view from the porch, not violate fire, not violate egress and entry and exit, and kind of give us more seating that still continues a view. So what we propose today, being very, very considerate of the beautiful nature of our building, is to create a temporary enclosure for the winter months only that is near invisible as it pertains to, it will be invisible as it pertains to the hand railing system and the like. And then have a drop-down canvas, clear plastic from the bottom of the porch ceiling to the top rail panel system so that we can keep the heat in. We expand our dining. It doesn't expand it. It doesn't expand it greatly, but it creates a warm space. We already have heaters underneath the crawl space because that's where all of our magic happens. So we'll have a naturally heated space, and so that's why we're here to answer any questions. The Inn at Cape May is one of 3 National Register buildings that we've restored. So I'm very familiar and actually very appreciative of the mission of this group. Yeah.
Normally, we go around the room and try to get a broad experience for you. In this instance, though, this came before the review committee, this application. We shared with you at the time that this is a key building, and we would expect it to continue to meet the standards that are provided. Vinyl in your proposal is not appropriate for a contributing building, let alone a key building. And we had suggested that and we gave you some addresses to take a look at on how you might deal with the issue. You either didn't do that or you rejected those those ideas, but I think there's a way for you to achieve your objective, but not with the product that you're proposing. It doesn't come close to meeting our standards, and I would, again, suggest you take a look at the properties that we suggested and come back with a proposal that would be closer to meeting our standards. Having said that, rather than go around the room, I'll simply open it up to the HPC. Does anyone have an observation? Or
I have a question. The application talks about temporary. How temporary is temporary? I mean, do you?
Temporary is, is winter season, late fall, winter season, early spring. The reason that I'd really like to dig into the building, the materials, because outside of that short window, which is now till March, whenever the north wind changes to the south wind, it all has to go away. It all, what keeps us warm in the winter and still maintains the visibility of the porch, it has to be gone.
I'm just trying to understand that if there were something that were visible, how long you would expect it to be up.
The only thing that will be visible from the street will be the clear curtain.
I understand you're revealing the railings, but I'm interested in knowing, are we talking?
Mid-October to mid-April.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Max.
Weather dependent. That was the whole point, is getting
Yeah,
through the winter
but I mean, you're really talking about half the time,
Right.
Yeah.
about half the time. Thank you.
And we chose the clear plastic to set behind the railing system, because you don't see it. It effectively.
Well, at least you see the railings.
You won't, but you won't see the clearness. It just acts as a wind dam. So if you're walking down the street,
But you do have doors and things that
those, yes, and
mimic.
People have to pass through those.
Which is,
yeah.
And if you'll go further through it, the door, it's showing, each of those exhibits is showing what the structure would be, but then if you go further into it, the door would be fully clear. As you mentioned, y'all gave us some guidance when we were last in front of you, so I went to that door option with push-pull hardware. It would be painted white to match the building.
Yeah, we wanted to, the reasons, if it wasn't for egress and ingress, that we wouldn't have doors. We would have a much more suitable temporary structure, but we have to get people on and off the porch. And so that's why.
Yep.
That's the sole reason for them. And they are temporary. When I say they're temporary, it will be for the time period that Dwayne said. It's really to block the wind and not the view from the outside in or the inside out.
no, I understand that, and that's not an objection. Trying to maintain a view and blocking the wind. This is not close to the kind of application you would expect on a keep property. So, other comments from the
Mr. Chairman?
commission?
Yeah, because it wasn't quite clear, you were talking about that round area on the porch, and I saw there was some sort of description in here about including the doors at the top of the ramp. Is this also going to continue around to the entrance of the inn?
No,
So it stops?
it stops.
It stops at the next flat portion. I don't know how to
Is there
exactly.
there's a step up right there? Is that where it
Correct.
stops?
Yeah, right
In that
past that.
area? Okay, so it's only really that round area and then?
one straight.
And then one straight, okay. I wasn't real
It's hard
clear on
to
that.
get it on paper. And if I may too, just comment on, I know what you're speaking of, and we did not ignore your suggestions. I know what the Virginia Hotel has installed. I used to work there, so I know what they did. We don't have the luxury of having all straight sides.
Or
They have
round?
straight panels, they encased acrylic in molding, and they hung them from hooks. That is very simple to do. We have rounded, a majority of our porch is rounded, so we were trying to find a solution with the clear vinyl, very minimal 6-inch, reveal around it in the same color of the building to be able to do those rounded sections.
And-
Otherwise, we
yeah.
would do a straight panel.
Exactly, and more importantly than that, to give you the nature of how temporary this is, we didn't want a permanent structure when there's a beautiful day. We can roll,
Right.
we can then roll that vinyl up and hide it behind the fascia of the rounded porch. So we understand that we really don't want to see it. When I say we don't want to see it, we want it not to be a distraction to the beautiful building, but the roundness allows us, causes us to use a more flexible application. And when we get above 50 degrees, we can roll all those top panels up, which you wouldn't see, and therefore you wouldn't see any of the enclosure.
Other comments?
So,
Anyone?
yes, I'm sorry, guys. We talked about this in review. And the documentation you've submitted, unfortunately, I can't really discern what it is you're trying to do. I get it, but the extent of the work that you're doing would really require a floor plan showing where precisely you are planning on putting this for two reasons. One is for us to understand it.
Yeah.
Actually, three reasons. Second is so that somebody can actually build it. And third, so that our inspector, when he or she, in this case he, goes out into the field to review and approve what's being put in the field, he has a document that he can refer to and say, yep, this is what was approved. With what we have here, there's nothing here that would be sufficient enough for us to approve or for our inspector to verify in the field.
So
With that said,
Go ahead.
sorry, I'm assuming, and this is why I prefaced it by saying everything I did, that this is probably the most accurate depiction of what it is you're attempting to do. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For
So
the
it's a
top portion, with
But
the
the
exception of
bottom is not.
So-
The bottom's clear.
So from the rail up, it's a 6-inch vinyl border of that dark blue or gray color.
As it mentions in the exhibit, there's a gray, the gray, that's not the exact color. it's the
Correct,
color on the
with the
sheet.
clear acrylic film zipping into the edge of the 6-inch border. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a separate piece above the railing from what happens below the railing?
Yes,
Yes.
that's,
And-
yes.
And what's happening below the railing? It's just clear?
It's absolutely clear.
Okay, so a couple of things that would really help would be, first of all, I understand your problem with the curve. That's really the only issue why you couldn't use something more rigid, right?
Correct.
However, you could use something more rigid if you did it in segments. It's how things used to be constructed, it depends. it
Yeah, the
depends on
curve's
radius of the
pretty.
curve.
Right.
th-
Yeah,
th-
yeah.
And then you would
So,
have
but
to add
I would
columns.
at least explore that and show us, I think we really need to see a section cut through, like we talked about in review, from the ceiling all the way down to the deck, that shows us in detail exactly what that's going to look like. Because it says C channels, but I'm looking, well, where do the C channels go? Are they affixed to the railing? Are they affixed to the columns? Are they affixed to the head? Where are they? Like, where are they? And how big are they, right? And then doors, where are the doors? So I can't make heads or tails. I'm sorry, guys, I just can't understand what you're submitting. And if you guys could really document that well, and eliminate as much as possible this opaque vinyl, because the vinyl is entirely inappropriate.
Well, so here, you bring up a great question, and I'd love your input. The reality is that the curve, if you're going to do a more rigid structure, which we're not interested in doing a more rigid structure, because that's how temporary this is.
'Cause you can't
And
roll it up.
we would want the option to make all that vinyl, that unsightly vinyl, disappear up into the eaves, which is naturally there. You can't see, again, great, if I gave you a floor plan, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And a detail, show me exactly how it's
Exactly. If I
attached.
gave you a cross detail, which is our fault, we'll make sure we do that. But if we do something rigid,
Yeah.
you introduce every bad element that you don't want.
Okay.
You introduce cross beams, you enter multiple pieces.
I'll buy it. You've convinced me.
Okay.
Right? Fair enough. It's the opaque vinyl piece that this particular design is mandating that I don't think is appropriate.
So you're talking about
The
the trim
6-inch border.
pieces on the outside?
Yeah. So that's why I asked if this is depicting what it is you're actually proposing above the rail.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that opaque border that I
It's the
think-
border.
Yeah, that's adding a whole new layer that is not, I don't think, appropriate with, or I would say conducive to the character of that building. So I think that if you could do it, even in this film, in a, let's call it a rigid channel that you can't see, and basically make the border disappear, I think you got a chance, as we talked about.
We can make the border white. It's going to fall behind the main columns anyway, so you'll still see.
You did
the
that, I think
columns.
you'd be on the right
You
track.
still see
So,
the
let me,
columns.
excuse me, let me understand. You're saying that changing the channels or borders to something else would,
There's two different things. There's the channel, which is the piece into which the vinyl retracts or not, right?
That's correct.
That's what I can't tell because I can't see a detail.
Got it.
The
There's a
other is
detailed
is the
drawing
opaque
in your-
border around.
okay, I'm hearing or understanding that vinyl itself is objectionable.
No, to me, it's the
Not-
opaque vinyl.
Not from you, but from others.
It's the opaque vinyl, because what we asked you to go look at, of course, was the Virginia, and you're right.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
You're right, they have, it's all straight there, so it's much
Yeah,
easier.
they're very lucky.
You guys have
Everything's at a 90-degree angle.
You guys have a bigger challenge.
Should
but I
come to
think
my
that's-
house.
That's the aesthetic effect I think that we're seeking, and I think you guys are creative enough to find a way to do that.
So I think what we can do, if we can convince them that vinyl, because of the temporary and the roll-up nature of it, if we use if that border is white and we hide that behind each column, then you'll see the column behind the border. And you'll see the whole rail system, you'll see everything, and all the channels, we'll just have to show them that all the channels are hidden up in the ceiling, which you can't see anyway.
I think you're on the right track, which is what we discussed. Yeah.
So we could do one of two things. We could make a motion to table if they want to come back.
We do.
Or I could make a motion to approve it, in which case you would all vote it down.
Probably. Well, based on the current documentation.
I was just
You
trying to,
can't make
I was
that
trying to,
assumption.
I was trying to just extend my record established earlier this evening for you all. But a motion to table would
Well,
be.
before we do, you got some comments here tonight, guys. Would you want some more time to maybe process this and come back to the board?
Yeah, we probably would like to even do another work session before we come back.
I would invite
So-
you to do that,
You know,
yes.
like, so we can get it, we can get everybody on the same page, because I don't think we're gonna get away from vinyl. If we don't go with, listen, we can go with a hard plastic, but now you're gonna introduce every structure that we don't want.
Yeah.
But we have to hide the borders, we can show the channels. If we do that in the next workshop, then you'll get a sense that, okay, you're on the right track, you're not on the right track. Because we want to try to get this done.
So procedurally, we're under a time crunch to make a decision.
We can give you
If-
an extension, right?
You can.
Yeah.
I just want to know, we could do next regular meeting, which would give you time to go to a Tuesday meeting and maybe come back next month.
Yes.
So you want to do to the next regular meeting of the HPC?
Yes.
Okay.
So I do have one other question. On those curved sections, and I do understand this challenge, believe me, there is the ability to use curved acrylic more rigid that is fixed, and you apply it and take it off on season and off season. That would prohibit, though, your desire to want to roll it up. So my question about the rolling up piece is are you envisioning this layer, this film, to be taut around that curve?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to be fluttering like a curtain. So that
No,
means
that would
there's going to have
drive
to
me
be a top
crazy.
channel and a bottom channel, in other words, to hold it in place, right?
That's what this exhibit.
Okay, and that's what I couldn't
Show.
tell us. So what's the channel in the railing?
It's in your packet.
So
You know
the
what I mean?
channel,
So
so
it shows
the
that.
top channel sits inside the fascia of the porch.
What about the
And the
railing?
bottom sits below the handrail, up underneath the handrail of the porch rail.
That's why I want to see.
So you hide, so it's all, so everything's hidden. All you don't see either from the street.
But that channel, when the acrylic is removed, the channel stays in place year-round, is that correct?
No.
No.
Oh, no, okay, good. This is what we need to see.
No, it's all no, it's all, and the hard plastic, the hard acrylic on the bottom.
Yeah.
That gets zipped out and stored. Everything goes away.
All we need to see are those details.
So in the event that the applicant doesn't make the next meeting, do I still need to do a motion to table, subject to the 45-day
We'll be-
waiver?
It's, they
We'll be
would,
at
they
we
would,
commit to be in the next meeting.
that's what it says on that form, that you would waive the time for decision to get yourself to the next regular meeting.
Yeah.
And then, do I have a motion to table?
I think that's what we're going to do, right? Yeah, okay, so motion to table the application, subject to the applicant waiving the 45-day rule.
Thanks.
Second, unless somebody else did it already?
No.
Yeah, if I can make a quick comment too. I mean, gentlemen, I hear what you're saying about, you want it up 5 months or something or less, or 6 months or less. But let me just point out that one of the things that we have to think about too on this side is, what are you going to do when you have a week of really squally weather and you go, you know what, that would be really good to put that stuff up right now and keep the thing going in the middle of the summer.
Oh, God,
And so,
no.
just, that's
I
what
don't
I
think-
say.
yeah, no, I can
think we're-
appreciate-
We're focused so much on the material that we're talking about here and how easy it is or not easy it is to put up or
Well, Kevin, I'm focused on temporary.
And we are too. I mean, we are, and we wouldn't even be before you if it wasn't for the beautiful architecture of the 1890s where everything is at a weird angle. So nobody would actually build a building like this. Nobody, so it just makes it easier for our diners to join the room.
Well, your building is our poster child for gorgeous windows.
She's a bad girlfriend. She is without doubt a
So
bad
motion to
girlfriend.
table was made and seconded.
We have a motion, we have to table, we have a second.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno? Ms. Wilson Strita?
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
New business. CMC of Cape May LLC, 721 Beach Avenue, Block 1064, Lot 16, non-contributing building. This is about a railing and a pool fence.
You want to touch it?
Would you turn on your mics, please? And then the three of you, I need your name and your relationship to the property.
My name is Gwen Finley. I own the Heritage Inn in Cape May.
My name is Scott Johnson. I'm contractor and project manager for the Heritage Inn.
Say your name.
My name is Eric Bednar. I'm one of the owners of the Heritage Inn.
Thank you. Take it away.
All right, I'd like to give you some pictures here so you can see this is our current building and where.
Yes, we will.
But what I'm trying to do here is, we have a lot of wood railing. We've owned that building for over 50 years. This is
You want to pass them that way?
right here.
Pass that way.
And over those 50 years, we've had to replace several times wood.
Post.
The
Spindles.
post, spindles, sections, et cetera, because the wood it absorbs the water. We're right across the street from the beachfront area, so it gets a lot of wear and tear. I get it painted and sanded, I get it replaced. It's just becoming an expense that
I see one of those pictures.
is costing us as a small business a lot, and it's a safety factor. People will sit and push their feet against the rail if they're sitting on the rocking chairs out front, and they'll break one of those. So I've decided that perhaps we could use vinyl instead. And I know that even though we're in Cape May, we are non-contributing, but still historical, I guess, in Cape May. Remember, we had that discussion?
Yeah.
Yes. So my plea is that you would let us just replace the wood railing, same for same. I'm not changing the design or anything.
It's the same spindles.
Same spindles, same everything. It'll meet all the height requirements, all the distant requirements.
I have two comments. First, looking at your pictures, the way a wood railing is done appropriately is the bottom is got a V shape, and each of the spindles then is cut on the V shape to fit, which sheds water. That's the way it was done during the period of significance. And wood railings will last countless years when they're constructed correctly in that fashion. Secondly, I appreciate your bringing in a sample. One of the things that makes vinyl really clear that it's artificial is the way it's hanging onto the a vertical, with those big bulky clamps. What we have approved in the past on non-contributing buildings is to build it stick-built with a vinyl material.
What does that mean? I'm not sure.
Piece by piece.
The connector piece is what advertises.
That's
Yes,
the part that bothers you?
What is the stick?
yeah. You can buy solid vinyl material that you would install the same way you would install wood, that would have the wood look, which can be appropriate on a non-contributing property in the historic district. And there's several manufacturers that you buy the raw material. So the head, for example, it comes in 8, 10, 12-foot lengths. And just like wood, you would cut it to length, and it wouldn't have that shine. The other thing with vinyl is this shine, especially in the sunshine, it's obvious vinyl. Whereas the product that I'm talking about has a normal
Do you know the
paint.
name of it?
Look, well, we don't want to market products at the HPC.
No, but-
There's,
So I can do some research.
you can do, there's several examples, and you'll see it as soon as you see it.
What is the product called? Do you know, like, what would I Google?
It's at different manufacturers, there's more than one. I believe if you go to any of the big box places, or if you go to Cape May Lumber or something, they can show you the material. It has characteristics of wood. You install it just like wood. The only difference is it won't rot, and it doesn't have to be painted.
It is Gwen, correct?
Yes.
So you guys are also wanting to replace the chain link fence around the pool, correct?
If we do
If I do this, I was going to match whatever it is that I do for the rest to the pool.
Changing the chain link fence.
Right.
Well,
Vinyl.
yeah, but no, you'll be able to use the material for the fence.
Yeah, if we
As
can do
well.
that same stuff, I would do the same
Right.
around the pool.
Yeah.
Because there's no sense of
I
getting
thought that would
vinyl
just
around the pool.
update it. I thought it would update the pool and make it look a little nicer.
Now, that's a big
Well,
improvement to the streets.
well, one of the concerns here is that you have so much railing.
I know.
It's miles of railing. So the fact that you would put prefab vinyl on it, and while we, as the chairman said, we've allowed vinyl in non-contributing structures, this would be a prominent display of prefabbed.
So you want it to just not be shiny?
Well, we want it to look like wood.
Right. We want it to look like wood that was
If that's possible,
installed
I would do that in a heartbeat.
in the period of significance.
Yeah.
And the material is available.
So basically, you're doing the design to
No,
look like
no,
it
the
should,
vinyl I had
and the materials are
My
not wood.
porch, how they kind of go through, that's what they want.
Okay.
But the only concern is then there won't be, we'd have to find out, there's aluminum in here,
Yeah,
which
this
is for our
happens to have
safety
a-
factor.
What we're talking about is a solid material.
It's solid?
Oh, you want like AZAC?
So like a Trex?
Like a Trex?
They're
Yeah,
their
AZAC.
names, they're-
You just don't want
No,
vinyl
the
then?
question is, I don't know if Trex comes in white.
Well, there's a lot of solid stuff that comes in white,
PVC, yeah.
and it's in more and more shapes every year.
Okay.
And you use the same tools that you would
But-
use for wood.
Also, what if there's can you get spindles like this? Because we
Do you
like
mind
the
the
colonial
spindles? Because I
look.
like the look of the spindles.
We don't want
as
straight
opposed to
Well,
Straight.
again,
That's also for,
you'll see, there's product available.
there is.
Okay.
All right.
I'll do it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I'm
I
just-
like the
this is-
spindle, I don't like square spindles if we're gonna keep it
Yeah, all the other
Victorian look
hotels
kinda thing.
on the beachfront all have the square spindles. We're colonial, so I happen to like,
So like kinda do what the
Fancy.
Avondale did, just different spindles.
Yeah, and your other option is to use wood with the
Yeah,
bottom rail
yeah.
set on an angle.
I would do, I
Yeah,
would do, I
that's how
like the
Avondale, then
first
that's how
option.
Avondale got away with doing it. They have AZAC.
Oh, okay.
I mean, part of the reason why you may be having premature failure is you're getting too much water shed the wrong way off of things that have been
Just
not
old.
properly constructed.
Well, it's been there 50 years, so.
Well, yes, I understand that, and I understand what it is to have a beachfront location, but I also understand how important it is to have the right design to shed
Yeah.
the water,
Right.
and also, to prime and to seal.
Right, we do. I have painters that
Yeah, so
are really good.
I guess
All right,
we'll
well,
have to look into AZAC.
I'm amenable to having AZAC or whatever that product
Yeah.
is.
I would encourage you to take a look at what your options are.
Depending on pricing.
Yeah,
Do you want to table this application?
yeah, does that mean I get to come
Yeah.
back and ask
We can
you
go
again?
get, like, because I want to get quotes then
I'll go
on,
get more samples. You want me to bring you more samples?
Well, no, if
they know.
if you have a catalog,
We can get all the samples you want.
Cut sheets will do just fine.
if you have catalog cut sheets, and
Just bring in a
the
catalog.
product that we're talking about,
Like, I can go to Lowe's and pick up a catalog of it, okay.
so.
Okay.
And
you'll
you
see.
just, so
It-
I'll
it-
eliminate the
It'll look
shine.
so much better.
We'll go to Avondale and
Okay,
ask
I
them
kind
what
of
they
get your
do.
point. That's a lot of railing, so it's got a lot of shine.
I agree.
Oh, I mean, it
I
is,
like the
it's a
AZAC.
prodigious amount of
You
railing.
just want these
I get it.
to be kind of away.
Well, they will go away with
Yeah,
the
with the
products that we're
AZAC, I
talking
know.
about because you're going to install it like wood.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. Yeah, and I'm tickled, so.
Once it's solid, you don't need those connectors anymore. The reason you need those connectors is because
Yeah.
that's just a thin sheet of vinyl wrapped around the aluminum.
Okay. Okay.
Once it's solid, you don't need those anymore.
Well, as long as I know I have alternatives, I'm thrilled. So,
And they're better looking.
okay. Yeah, I just hope I can find something, not just square, 'cause I like this look.
Do I have
So,
do I have
just-
a motion to table?
But before we do that, just want to make sure the applicant, you guys want to receive some comments tonight. Do you want to request to table the application, waive the, we're under a shot clock to make a decision here. But you have the opportunity to say, you know what, I'll waive the time for decision. Let us go back, get some confirmation of the materials, and make a final material selection that you can come back and present.
I would like to do that.
Do you think you want to do that in the next month, so maybe come back to the next monthly meeting of
As
the
soon
HPC?
as possible.
Okay, so why don't we do this? The applicant requests to table the application to the next regular meeting of the HPC. You'll waive the time
Okay.
for decision. That'll give you time to go back and,
How do we find out when to come back and everything?
it'll just be the next,
Yeah,
It's
talk to
always the same.
Judy.
My question to you is, if we did go with our material, would we be able to get approval for this tonight? If we change that to what we were just showing here?
It's not
No, I think you
not
want to
specific
take a
enough.
look at the material that's available. Bring the cut sheets, the catalog cut sheets or sample. We want to see certain bulkiness to the top rail and things of that nature.
So
So
what would you need us to bring in additional to what you have in the packaging for next meeting?
The-
Just a catalog?
yeah, the
And then just show
catalog.
you what the material is,
Yes.
that's right?
Same drawing, the elevation drawing you sent us with the section that you drew.
Yep.
I mean, I think the good news for you is that it is not the design that's in question.
material.
It's the materials that need to be acceptable.
The other
Okay.
good news is that I think what you're hearing is that the vinyl or composite material would be acceptable.
Great. That's fabulous. Okay.
Well, won't it be vinyl, right? That's vinyl.
there's definitional problems. AZAC is a form of vinyl.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right, yeah, it's just compressed vinyl, I guess.
yeah, so
It's a harder,
it gives you a chance to go back and
It's a
see what
composite,
works
yeah,
for you
sure.
guys. You can present that
100%.
here.
cool.
And I just add that many of those manufacturers are broadening their product lines all the time. So there really is a lot that's available in the ability to do the stick-built
So to come
construction.
back, I really just have to bring the spec sheet
Just
and the
catalog it.
material.
And you need to revise your application a little bit, too.
Correct. It would just be another elevation and section of the railing, showing the details of it, and cut sheets of from the catalog of the company's material that you want to use. And the next meeting is December 16th.
And do I need to apply and do all the paperwork again?
Yeah.
But I don't think you need to resubmit. You don't need to resubmit the fee.
Yeah. What's
There's
for-
no additional fee.
No, we're,
That's what you get out of tabling it, yeah.
okay, so,
What a deal.
Ms. Finley, just need you to sign. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
you need a motion?
Yes, we need a motion.
Janice would like to make a motion.
I move to table the application.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stridick,
Thank you.
seconded by Mr. Testa.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, Gwen.
That was the place our family stayed the very first time in 1957.
Next order of business.
Whoa, we didn't do a vote yet.
Next order of business.
Motion by
Stevenson.
Ms. Wilson.
My mother wasn't taking us to the
Oh, we're voting. Sorry.
Chicky. I was just going to say. We didn't vote yet.
Yeah, sorry, Judy. We have a motion, we have a second.
No, I'm doing it. Yeah.
Aye.
Although she's going to be
something
kicking
to
me under the
prevent
table.
people from going into
Okay,
the car.
hold it down. We're trying to get control of this.
Papers, wrappers.
Jim,
Mr. Copeland.
yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Thank you.
Thank you. Stevenson,
Now we get to the highlight of the evening.
233 Cape Hart
Very good.
Lane, Block 1031, lots 38.02 and 39. This is a non-contributing property. We want to look at an addition, windows, siding, roofing, a cupola, doors, shutters, lighting. That's all. And you'll have to turn on your mic,
Even though we know who you are, you have to turn on your
and
mic.
we need your name
Okay, my
and
name is
relationship to the
Joseph
property.
Stevenson. I live at 233 Cape Hart Lane in Cape May City. And this is my wife, Gail Stevenson. She also lives at 233 Cape Hart Lane. We are the owners of the property, and it's our primary residence.
Thank you. Take it away.
Okay, this building, an historic survey indicates that it was a part of a group of agricultural buildings that ran along the old Cape Island Creek that included Congress Hall Stables. It's the last remaining barn from that area of agricultural buildings. It was once owned by Eldridge Johnson, who was a politician in town and also the owner of the Pink House. And we have that deed, showing that he once owned it. Back in somewhere around the 1960s, the barn was converted into a warehouse and with a second-floor residential unit, and then a few years after that, it was converted into a full residential unit. There was a garage put on the back in the 1960s. It was a 16 by 20 addition, and by virtue of that addition and by the fenestration with the windows, it lost its contributing status. The National Registry does recognize, though, such a thing as cultural importance, and agriculture is one of those things, as well as the fact that the barn does remind people that at one time it was a horse-drawn carriage was the preferred way for people to get around town. It still is underneath all the 1970s siding and the cheap Kmart windows. It is a 21 by 24 foot barn that is made out of mortise and tenon. So she's still under there. Our intent with this is to try to bring it back to help restore the appearance of the barn the way, at least what it looked like back in the period of significance. To that end, and I said this is strictly anecdotal, we did receive an approval in 2018, but that was 6 years ago for portions of this. But tonight, we've decided to bring the whole thing back and go through the whole process. Okay, under the current app, and I'll go through the pages. What we're looking to do here is, it's a modest addition. The addition will be in the rear of the premises, and it's stepped back on the left elevation about 4.5 feet. And on the right side, we will put a corner board trim that will show the delineation between the existing building and the addition. Currently, it has 1970s vinyl siding, I think that's cracked. Underneath that, there's some asphalt materials that were prevalent back in the 1940s and 50s that resembled brick. Underneath that, it's 1 by 12 and 1 by 10 boards that are affixed to the original beams of the building, and a lot of them are hand-hewn. Our intent is to reclad the building with hardy panel. And reflecting on the exterior cladding, I'm referring to page 22 in our standards, that replacement composite cladding is appropriate on non-contributing properties and additions to non-contributing properties. On page 23, the wood siding, we have indications of the, this is again referring to our standards. On page 23, they indicate types of wood siding that are appropriate, and it is lapped, clapboard, and board and batten. Our plan is to reclad the front of the building, the barn, and board and batten to reflect its prior usage. The rear addition, including the first floor, which is 16 by 20, the second floor addition will be built upon the existing footprint. That will be clad in clapboard just to provide differentiation, but still be complementary, in that there are a lot of buildings in the area that have the clapboard. That would have a 7-inch exposure. On the board and batten, it would be 12-inch on center with 2-inch battens. The trim would be also hardy panel trim that would be 2 inches, would match the battens. So looking at the A1, we have the streetscape, and our place is the little yellow place in the middle. We have the MUA across the street from it, a small one-story building next to us, a cottage. We've had several rather large places built recently in our neighborhood. Page A2 of inspirations, on the bottom left-hand side would show a barn from the same period, which would indicate the board and batten siding as well as a cupola on the roof. So we're trying not to be purely conjecture. We are trying to look at some historical evidence of pre-existing buildings that would reflect it. At the bottom in the middle is the rain canopy, which would also have a metal roof that would match the metal roof on the roof. In the rear, in our 16 by 20 second floor addition, the top 3 pictures on page N2 would show, right now we only have one window on each side of the house, the left and right side. So it's very dark in there. In this addition, we would like it to be a bright light room. All 3 of these photos in the top on A2 are all from buildings in Cape May. On A3, more inspirations. There are no gutters on the building presently, and we want to put gutters on it, and we would do half round, which was appropriate back in that time period. see here. Actually, it's on page 19 of the standards, that most homes constructed before World War II originally featured half-round or U-style gutter profiles. That is what we're also trying to put on this building. Would be silver or Galvalume in color. The roof, as I'm going to describe later, is also going to be a silver color, so we feel that it would kind of match that. And on A3 also, on the right-hand side, there's a picture of a board and batten with a metal roof and a cupola, which is also another inspirational picture to show the look that we're trying to achieve here. Okay, I'm going to be moving on to windows next. Okay, and with windows, again, I'm referring to our standards book on page 26, where it says replacement vinyl, aluminum, or steel windows are appropriate only on non-contributing properties and additions to non-contributing properties. And on a scale that's consistent with the historic windows of the district. We have these old 1980s windows. They're pieces of junk. We are going to go with windows, the Jeld-Wen windows that properly reflect the period. They're going to have a colonial-style grids, 4/1. They will have a simulated divided light, and again, that's trying to project age. We are requesting that they will be clad as in the same for what we have and as appropriate on a non-contributing building. Okay, and that's regarding the windows. They will be white also. They'll match the cladding of the house. There will no black windows or anything like that. The Atos roof we're looking at, when I had spoke the last time around, I believe it was Mr. Carroll, had suggested that they be 12 inches on center. Again, that I will make stipulation that the seam will be below 1 inch or 1 inch or below. It may not be clear on the cut sheet, but I make a stipulation it will be 1 inch or below. I would have preferred to have a rolled seam, but really just couldn't find one. On A6, we have the lighting, which on the side of the building, we would have, where the driveway is, we would have two of the steel lighting Westchester barn light, which is shielded and it's dark sky compliant. Again, we want to be right up to date with the ordinance. And the other ones on the front lighting, we tried to achieve the look of kerosene or oil lamps that would have been used on a barn. And they will be electric, but will have the smallest wattage that we can have, just to provide a nice look like a flame, but nothing obnoxious or... and then another barn light will be up inside of the rain canopy, will be hidden from you, but will shed light on the door without projecting outward. We have a large group of, we have some features that are really not available in catalogs. The rain canopy will be handcrafted. It will feature a metal roof that matches the metal roof on the roof. The shutters that we have on the second floor that are almost more like a hatch, and that these are smaller windows, will be handcrafted as well, real wood. They will have the pintle hinge, and they will have shutter dogs. They will be fully operational and will be fit the opening of the window exactly. The cupola, when I first presented this originally, we had a 24 by 24 cupola, and Mr. Carroll had suggested that it was too small for the design. We went down to Kent Narrows, Maryland, and we purchased a handcrafted cupola that is 3 by 3 by 5 with a copper top on it, and hopefully that's more in keeping with the scale. Additionally, the front door that we have there now is a gel-wend ferrite door with 6 panes at the top. In order to affect the look of the barn and bring some of its historic nature back, we went to Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and bought 4 handcrafted barn doors, Dutch barn doors, real wood, and that would be our front door, the back door, and the second floor door. And the only other additional thing would be the barn, the hay hoist, and that will just be crafted. I mean, in the past, we've used Scotty Smith, and Scott does a lot of work for us, so it would more than likely be him. Okay, and the next pages are the existing floor plan, and what we did on P2, a lot of times, you know, we have presentations to come in, and you have to go through a lot of pages to compare existing versus proposed. So what we've done is we've taken the existing and proposed, where you can readily look down and see the changes that will be made. And the top is actually, you know, is our front, and the bottom is the proposed. And again, you'll see where it's the metal roof, the cupola, the hatches. The windows will be small. They're all going to be 28 by 28 as opposed to the 28 by 52 there now, and the smaller one in the middle. The windows on the first floor will be unchanged as existing. Rear elevation, where I show how there's going to be the windows. And this is not correct, and I will put that on record, that on the proposed rear elevation, the second floor, they are going to be like 15 pane windows, where the architect had them as 4/1. That's not correct. If you remember in the inspiration photos, we showed you places in town where it was 15 pane, 15 light windows. Now, one thing, again, you know, this is something the commission would have to consider, and I'm open to suggestions. Underneath the hay hoist, we have a window, pre-existing window, that we would like to make it look like it was an opening where hay would go in, and we have a handcrafted rough shutter there. But if the commission would feel that we should just do a 4/4 like the rest of them, we would do that. I mean, other than that, I think that's our presentation.
Thank you. It's,
Scattered as it was.
Jake, it's not surprising that the presentation is clear and consistent
Yes.
with our standards, and so thank you, I appreciate that. I would open it up to the commission. Does anyone have any observations or comments that they would like to make?
Yes, nicely done. Even clever to change the siding on the addition part instead of the board and batten from the barn piece, so it's even more distinguished as a separate.
Yeah.
So I only have one question. You answered everything else I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you in your presentation. Will you need to go to zoning for this?
Yes.
Okay, that's why it's conceptual?
The reason why we're here now is at the request of our attorney. So, you know, we realized that any approval would be contingent upon the satisfaction of the zoning requirements. I've talked with Karen Keenan, and Karen indicates that, you know, probably January at best, if not later. So in order to expedite the process, I think our attorney wanted us to come here first and then take it to them.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you need conceptual approval tonight?
Yes, I mean, and then, you know, with conceptual, once I receive say we receive all our zoning approvals, then what would be our,
Before you go there, it seems to me that you, with what you want to do in your presentation, you in fact could go for final. And then the question is if zoning request something that forces a change, then you would have to come back.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or this just could be a conceptual approval, which with resubmission would be done very quickly.
Well, I'm thinking to get a resolution, and
Yeah.
I think that's what our attorney was looking for here. It's Ron Galzunas.
it seems I don't see a reason not to go with final. And then assuming there's no changes at zoning, you've.
But, I mean, if zoning does not approve what we were, then it.
And I'm
turns
sorry,
into
Jake,
pumpkin.
what was the,
No, you
Yeah.
would just come back.
what-
Yeah,
what's-
but I'm saying, but it more or less, that would have to come back again, yeah. But if they approve it, it would
Ready
sit
to go.
as.
Do you know when you intend to go to zoning? Have you submitted?
I
on it?
talked to Karen Keenan, and she's saying January at the earliest, and that was several weeks ago, so maybe
Okay.
February at this
I
point.
mean, if the board is satisfied that this is complete enough for a final, I think you'd have the discretion to consider that if you like. Then the resolution would be the next meeting.
Yes.
It just seems like.
I have to say, I mean, this is marked for conceptual. It is such a good job. I mean, I hate to flatter you, but this is really an excellent way of turning a structure that's had some difficulty and not such great care, and you've now moved it to the point where historically it reminds us of a really nice barn approach. You've done so many things to improve it. This is if this were submitted for final approval, I would approve it as final. So, I mean,
First barring.
other than our little rule about going to the planning board with conceptual, because they might do something to change
I understand
it.
completely.
So
I think it's to your advantage. I don't see a downside to going for final.
Oh, yes, I mean, that would probably be better.
Can I ask a question, just as much for my own self-education as anything else? I mean, you're doing so much good work to take this structure back to its sort of original condition, or at least, original
Yeah.
appearance. I guess I'm going to ask the question, is it not, why would you consider, or would you not want to take it actually to the original materials instead of like the wood clad or something like that? And then can you get back into the historic designation? Cover it.
I've never heard of that being an option. I mean,
That is not an option.
yeah.
You cannot get back to the
No, it won't go back.
And it's had a lot of work.
I mean, well, and it's extremely uncertain that it would. I mean, probably not. Presumably, you could make a
Yeah,
case,
believe me,
but there's no point in doing that, Jake.
Yeah, we didn't entertain that, so.
But the only reason I ask that is, here we are in a city where we lose a property.
Yeah,
from-
I know you'd like to get one
Great
back.
to recover one if that's
Sure.
possible.
So I just have a question for a solicitor. Can we approve a final submission without zoning approval? Can we legally do that?
Yes, I mean,
It's contingent.
Just contingent
it would
upon
be-
zoning approval?
Yeah, certainly, it's just like their approval will be contingent on us. That one of the conditions would be having zoning approval for, whatever's necessary for that.
So if there is a zoning issue and he needs to come back, it would be a new submission, is that
If
correct?
there's if there's some discussion at the zoning board about, hey, you ought to move this or change that, and it impacts what was presented tonight, then yeah, you would need to come back.
Jake, what would you be going to the board for?
Well, I mean, the fact that we're putting a second floor addition, even though it's on the existing footprint, it does change floor to area ratio, lot coverage.
But in no way you've calculated that violates anything, does it?
Excuse me?
Does it, we will need you'll need a,
We'll need an FAR variance, that's probably why.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So in fact, you're saying you may need an FAR or lot coverage variance?
That's what we believe, that, even though it's on the existing footprint, it's still somehow calculated in.
Yeah. Well, floor area ratio, if you're adding habitable space, your FAR would increase, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And we did consciously keep this, on the existing, we wanted to keep it very small, but it still triggers variances.
So the board has the discretion to consider this, if it's complete enough and we don't anticipate changes, the board can consider this final, and that would result in a resolution. And then he could go to the board and say, hey, I got a resolution, they've approved it already, The risk there is that if they make some change, he may have to come back
Yeah.
and ask for the board to
Understood.
amend that before he's able to proceed.
Well,
Typically, we'll do a conceptual letter, and then the applicant will go, and then they'll come back with some final conditions, this or that. But if the board is satisfied that this is in final form, you can consider that. I mean, it's not always that we're doing that, but I think you have the discretion to do that, if that's how you want to proceed.
Other than the undertaking with respect to the roof and the standing seam, which you said you would stipulate, there's no other condition I would impose on.
Well, he also is changing the windows. We want to make sure we have that.
I'm sorry.
He's changing the window configuration from what's drawn, that's all. So we would just need,
Yeah, but you mean the rear windows?
correct.
Yeah, but I saw the
Yeah,
conceptual.
And, it was indicated on my inspirations, but I will
Yeah.
try to get a cut sheet for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I just consider that so minor and immaterial.
Yeah, they would still be but with 15 lights as opposed to the 4/1 as on the plan.
So it's a 15/1, is that what you're saying?
No, it's
it
the
would be
whole-
On the inspiration.
Oh, just, it's not a double hung.
Yeah,
Got it.
basically, we really liked looking at the back sunroom of the Wooden Rabbit.
Okay.
And we kind of liked the way that looked, and so we found some other places around town.
So we could approve this final with the two caveats that it's the 1-inch standing seam and the 15-light window,
And
right?
that it have planning board.
And that it gets zoning approval.
Zoning
Those
approval.
three conditions, yes?
Those,
Zoning board.
I'm sorry, zoning, right.
Yeah. Oh, do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, that we approve this with those three conditions, that you submit us a cut sheet of the windows, specify the 1-inch standing seam, and you obtain zoning approval.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Testa. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
You can't.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Bisagno? Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin?
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's been 7 years we've been trying to get this baby moving. Thank you,
Well, it's moving now,
thank you.
so good. Thank you. Okay, open to the public. Anyone? We'll close to the public. Now we'll move to discussion. Anyone? No one interested in a discussion? Before we go to adjournment, I would like to make a statement here. As our meeting comes to an end tonight, I'd like to share with you, with the HPC, my future plans. In January, my term will expire. I met with the mayor. I told him that I will retire from the HPC at that time. There is no circumstance that prompts this decision except for the celebration of my 79th birthday. Since joining the HPC in 2007, I'm proud to be able to share in our collective success. In those early days, we found that Cape May was on the Secretary of Interior's watch list for endangered national landmarks. We as a group successfully corrected those issues, and now we've come full circle by being proud to accept several awards this past year from the state of New Jersey. After 18 years, it's time to retire and turn the reins over to new leadership. I wish all of you the best moving forward to keep Cape May as the nation's only National Historic Landmark city. I look forward to following your success. I want to thank all of you for your support. I've enjoyed working with all the members of the HPC, both past and present, as well as city administration. My last meeting will be the next meeting, December, which I'll attend. We've been asked by the state on several occasions to have a picture of the HPC. We don't have one. We've never had one. And so this might be an opportunity in December to take a picture of the HPC. So you might want to gussy up a little bit. Tuxedos are not necessary. Anyway, I wish you all the best and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Well, it certainly deserves.
Round of applause.
And I don't think there's anybody here, Warren, who has not grown into our roles here and appreciated the leadership. I think, it's been, this is only my, I guess, 6th year or so, which makes me really junior compared to the experience you've had. But I've learned an awful lot. I've learned to review these matters as they come up and try to see them with a preservationist's eye and do some balancing. But I think we all appreciate the leadership that you've shown, even though you and I don't agree on everything, or we sometimes have some disagreements. I think everyone here really appreciates the role and the leadership you've provided for us all. And we're going to miss you a lot.
Thank you. Well, you will. We've built a strong HPC. I don't want to disparage prior HPCs, but I would share with you when I joined, there were 2 people on the HPC that would frequently fall asleep during presentations made by applicants. Well-meaning, nice people. But it wasn't the expectations that we have today with bringing in people that are skilled and interested and awake. So, yeah.
Yeah, Warren, I'd like to thank you as well. It's going to be very tough boots to fill, because you were the guy that really held the line on it, and kept our designation. And also, I would thank you for almost single-handedly with the African American History District, which is another big thing you've done.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get a meeting with the mayor to make sure I don't overdo something, but I understand that at the January city council meeting, that I will make a presentation as to the final success of that several-year adventure and 500-page submission. But we have received approval, and so I think it's appropriate to recognize all the people that have worked on that, but also to recognize the minority population in Cape May. After all these years, it's finally recognized that the African-American community has made a significant contribution to Cape May's historic landmark, with artisans, professionals, service people, and it's about time they're recognized, and that has now happened. So, yeah, a huge effort. I remember years ago when we presented this, Andrea Tingia and I presented this to get a grant to create this. I remember we wanted to amend the historic landmark, and a note came back from the federal government that scribbled across the top that this is really an interesting proposal, and they're excited to see the application, and they were supportive of the grant. So, yeah, it's an exciting thing, and the community should be proud. Hopefully, we'll get some people there and recognized. So,
So I'd just like to thank you too, because I think the effectiveness of this commission in your tenure, how it's grown and actually really been effective, can't be overstated. And I think it's a testament to how much you deeply care about this community and this commission, so thank you.
Thank you.
Warren, if I can add to that, you and I have gotten to work since I became solicitor more and more over the years, and we've had some successes in court defending the work of the HPC and the city's ordinances, and you were extremely helpful and supportive of those efforts, and I commend you for that. And those successes are the HPC successes, and you're definitely a part of that. So it's been great working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
I'd like to say that I always admired how you held yourself and the commission to the highest standards. Even when it wasn't popular, you took the right stance all of the time, and the most important thing in your heart was the standards, our national landmark, and you have really brought the whole commission to a new level. And we thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that the reason I'm on this commission is because I spent a year in the audience listening to you deal with all kinds of comments and challenges. And I heard the commission, I don't remember anyone falling asleep. I do remember.
That was 18 years ago.
Okay. I do remember there was confusion about materials, and, there was just a lot. I learned a lot as a community member observing. But one of the main things I really admired, and I still think it's amazing, is how hard you work and how patient you are at explaining principles like what a contributing structure is, that you would hope people, especially architects, would understand when they come before the board, but you never acted impatient about putting that forth. And it does seem like it's a message we have to keep sharing. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Warren, I do have to say, heartfelt, because when I first came on this board, you spent a lot of time with me. This was new to me. Living in Cape May, though, is not, but knowing, your knowledge that you brought and taught me, you're going to be missed here, absolutely. And the spirit of your leadership, and your knowledge, it's going to continue here because you laid great foundations. Thank you.
Yes, we have strong people here, so I am confident that this HPC will continue to move in the direction that has been set. And so, yeah, it's time for new leadership, new ideas. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess this calls for a motion for adjournment. Or whatever.
Adjourn?
Adjourn. Aye.